Hi, welcome to my masterclass on my unique 7-step ERP success recipe, which will enable you to fix your ERP. As I've mentioned before, I've investigated dozens of substandard ERP implementations and advised clients how to turn them around. I've developed a unique 7-step process that, if accurately followed, will guarantee you an excellent ERP outcome for your existing ERP. This masterclass will give you the headlines of how you can fix your ERP and invite you to attend a 2-day course that will discuss the 7-step recipe in detail. So the outcome of the 7-step recipe is what I call a Thrive outcome: improved profitability, growth, competitiveness, a highly effective solution. To put that in context, interview with the CEO of a FTSE 100 company. Please rate your big brand ERP. His response: operationally, I'd give it 8 out of 10, but at a strategic executive level, it's a 1 out of 10. I've got an expensive team collating the board pack outside the ERP. So we see that strategic focus is critical, but is largely not understood. And he's not alone. Gartner report 55 to 75% of ERP implementations do not deliver. And that's corroborated by ChatGPT. 72% of ERP systems fail to meet executive expectations, and that bulleted list their inadequate executive decision support. 25% of what executives are saying is a problem with their ERPs. So why do 55 to 75% of ERP implementations fail to deliver what was promised? Well, the CEO is not the sponsor. There's no strategic ERP project leader. There's no strategic alignment. There's no precision ERP configuration. And other elements of my recipe are also missing. This masterclass will show you how to successfully enhance your ERP implementation and why these things matter. Strategic decision support is critical. It's the most important outcome. This is where the true return on investment for your ERP lies. Precision ERP configuration is absolutely essential to delivering a high-value outcome. It's an art and also a science, and we'll look at all of this in the minutes ahead. So how did I learn that high-value outcomes were possible? Well, the first project I ever did, I enabled the client to double their turnover in 12 months because I enabled them to do things that their competitors couldn't do. I've had a number of other successful projects, and so I know it's possible. So let me give you a couple of examples. The auditors just left after 6 weeks last year. They were here for 6 months. They signed off the balance sheet without qualifications for the first time in 15 years. We have masses of management information. Profitability is improved, and we did it with one less bookkeeper. Another example: facilitated growth, new distribution center, a necessity. Developed a highly analytical culture, positioned ASCO as an industry leader in the management of information and therefore brand management in its category. Secured the Dior account, highly prestigious, with an immediate 12% revenue uplift. So I know it's possible. How did I learn that failure was the norm? Well, I spoke at conferences about what I'd achieved. CEOs came up to me and said, "We like what you say, but we don't have that. Please help." I've investigated and turned around dozens of ERP systems that were not performing. So much so that I developed a service that I called a pulse measurement, where I go in a very short period of time on a light touch basis, ranking everything against my experience. I deliver a report with roughly seven bullet points, experientially based findings, weighted in terms of their importance, and likewise recommendations. And I've done that very many times. On the basis of those investigations, I sat down and analyzed the situation, factors causing failure, critical factors for success, and I wrote the book, The Critical Factors for Information Technologies Investment Success. And if you attend the 2-day training, you'll get a copy of the book. As a consequence of writing the book, I started delivering trainings, courses and executive briefings, why your ERP is not delivering and how to fix it, ERP and strategic and competitive management, the critical factors for ERP investment success. I've done those dozens of times, so I really know my material. An example of sloppy configuration, this goes back to the FTSE 100 company where the CEO gave the ERP 1 out of 10 for the strategic side of things. If you look at what's on the screen there, it's completely unstructured. There's absolutely no logic. Plant spares is a broad category which covers other bits and pieces on that list. Foodstuffs next to engineering and lubricants and electrics doesn't make any sense at all. It's impossible to simply interrogate that list. And that's why the CEO is giving it 1 out of 10. And then going further, the same company, the material group code, same situation. No logic, no structure. Pipe and pipe fittings 3 times, same description, next to railway sleepers and battery locos. Folks, it's absolutely useless from a strategic executive point of view. Another example, another ERP, another company, credit note reason codes on the left there. Really completely inadequate list. On the right is what we came up with working with the CEO. Comprehensive, some conventions. The capital letters mean something. The trailing periods in the codes mean something. Ease of filtering, ease of interpretation, ease of analysis. These principles and other standards apply to every single table, including the item class, the chart of accounts, the dimensions, etc. An elaboration of that, the cubic business model, modeling the business in every dimension, every module, very structured, very, very carefully thought out if it's done correctly. And I developed this many years ago. The first time I did it, I quoted the client 90 hours to develop their chart of accounts. It took me 1,000 hours. And I learned some quite interesting little tricks which make this whole thing work. And it gives a very, very high quality outcome in terms of strategic information and the day-to-day management of the business and control of expenses, etc. So what I'm saying is that if you implement your ERP at the top right of the curve that's on the screen there, with a 10 out of 10 for strategic competitive business value and profitability, and that's 100% in terms of precision ERP configuration, you will get an exceptional outcome. If you slide down that curve down towards the bottom left, with the examples that I've just shown you, you will get a rubbish outcome as per that CEO. So I've developed, based on years of experience and what works and what doesn't work, this 7-step recipe, which if you apply it consistently, will deliver world-class strategic effectiveness, leading to improved profitability and growth, in other words, a Thrive outcome. And the rest of this masterclass, I'm going to explain to you how that works. So starting with step 1, lock in CEO custody. The ERP is transverse, it's cross-cutting. The CEO owns the integrated holistic view of the business. So only the CEO can be the sponsor of the ERP. And that goes to the implementation of the ERP. It also goes to the day-to-day management of the ERP. Now, the CEO doesn't have the knowledge and experience to do that, so you need to put in something in place alongside that, somebody that I call the strategic project leader. And that strategic project leader, particularly during an implementation, needs to have an open door to the CEO. They need to consult daily, and the CEO needs to give direction because he owns or she owns that holistic view of the business. And only the CEO can kick butt across the enterprise if people are not putting in the effort that's required. And part of what I'm advocating, folks, is a much higher level of involvement of the C-suite, of the executives. If you want executive information in, you've got to put if you want executive information out, you've got to put executive intelligence in to the way you configure things. A big reason why ERPs do not deliver what was promised is because the wrong people are involved. You cannot get the IT manager or even the CIO or the CFO to effectively implement an ERP that's going to work across the enterprise. So if we look at focus areas of executives, creating and delivering value, differentiating, motivating, meeting and exceeding owner expectations, building exceptional partnerships with suppliers, integrating and optimizing the business. Day-to-day operational efficiency and effectiveness should only take about 5%. Part of that is about getting the ERP running really smoothly. And frankly, folks, I've encountered many situations where the execs say we don't have time to get involved with the ERP. Now, you're talking about a 20-year investment that on the high road can add huge value to the business and on the low road can destroy your business. And you don't have time for it? Something's not right, folks. To be brutally honest, if your C-suite is saying we don't have time to apply ourselves at an intellectual, strategic level to implementing and running this ERP, then you need to send some people on courses about delegation so that they can free up their time. So in terms of achieving executive custody, there are 4 components. The first is engagement. Make the time, as I've just said, to get involved. Secondly is leadership. Realizing that you cannot delegate the implementation of your ERP or the running of your ERP to some mid-level manager, particularly if it's an outside contractor. You need to take ownership and you need to give leadership. There's a piece about prove it works, which is when you've got everything set up, you need to demonstrate that it works, and that's the laboratory, and we'll talk about that in a bit more detail in a few minutes. And then make it work. And make it work is metaphorically the CEO with the sort of stance that you see on that photograph, just standing there and say, folks, I know this can work, make it work. There's a little bit of being tough on that one, a bit of tough love. So to sum up, CEO custody, the CEO owns the strategic holistic view. The CEO custody is therefore not negotiable. Only the CEO can kick butt. Executive intelligence out requires executive intelligence in. The CEO must guide you. It's about working clever, not hard. The magnitude of the investment warrants the time investment, and the scale of the downside risk warrants the time investment. Folks, the real cost of an ERP implementation is not what you pay for the software. It's not even what you pay the implementers. It's not even what you pay consultants or contractors. It's what you take out of the business to do a really good quality implementation. The real cost of an ERP implementation is way, way more than the visible cost. So you really, really need to get it right. So step number 2 in the process, engage a strategic ERP project leader. So as I said a moment ago, the CEO does not have the time or the knowledge to manage the ERP project, so needs an advisor, an agent that I call the strategic ERP project leader. This is an executive level experienced graybeard that leads the ERP project. It's not a project manager or administrator. The implementer provides the project management. There's no need for an in-house project manager, and we'll talk about that a bit more in a minute. The execs must lead their teams, point that I made a moment ago. And then in-house administrator to handle coordination, diary management, scheduling workshops, etc. The strategic ERP project leader is absolutely central to a successful implementation. The role facilitates development of the strategic requirements and the critical success factors with EXCO, or brings in a specialist strategic facilitator. It's an executive level position. The person concerned should be a peer to the rest of the C-suite. It's likely to be a contractor or an interim executive. It's not an internal role. You need a specialist, someone who's done this at least a few times before, somebody who is familiar with ERP implementations at the executive strategic level. And those are probably harder to find than you would imagine. That person needs to meet regularly with the CEO and with the executive committee. They provide high-level oversight and guide the project. It's a facilitative role, not line or executive. It's delegated authority. They need to have an awareness of the tension between cost, deadline, and quality, but it's not their primary focus. They are not, I say again, they are not project managers. So to build on that point, the SPL is operating at executive level. They're interested in the 20% that is strategic to deliver 80% of the value, whereas a project manager is focused on the 80% that delivers the operational outcome. And the implementer should provide that person. They know the software intimately. They should have a thorough way of working to get that done. Then execs must lead their teams and own their silos in ERP. Folks, you do not delegate what I'm talking about here to your mid-level managers or even your second line. The leadership must come from the top. I didn't say a lot of time, I said leadership. SPL is fundamentally a different focus to the project manager. The schedule, the Gantt charts, etc., provided by the implementer project manager. A senior client administrative employee handles coordination and administration. I did one project where we used the personal assistant to the chief executive for that. And then I want to stress this, folks. An in-house project manager clouds the project. It's to be avoided. It can be toxic. It causes all sorts of problems. You have a strategic project leader running the project, and then that person works with the executive team who are involved in managing the individual aspects of the ERP. How did I learn that CEO executive custody was critical? The first project I ever did, fantastic executive custody, open door to the CEO. It was a highly successful project. The next two projects got burned badly, didn't understand the importance of that. Chief financial officer in both cases, both inexperienced, hadn't been with the company long. Next project, very successful. Some issues because the CEO didn't drive the project. And over the years, I've had various situations where I've worked with others than the CEO until I eventually realized it's got to be the CEO. And I've investigated many projects where the CEO was not the sponsor, and always you've got a suboptimal outcome. The consequence of that, folks, is that ERP is a harsh judge of governance. Bad ERP decisions wreck businesses. Example of a chemicals importer and distributor, service promise, order in by 3, dispatch by no later than 10 a.m. the next business day. Went live, taking them 3 days instead of overnight. They lost their biggest customer. They were on the point of losing their next 2 customers when they brought me in. I turned the situation around in 6 weeks. But it nearly put them out of business. Gold mining company came in, told them what the problem was. They didn't have the appetite to do what I told them they had to do, went out of business. So ERP direction is CEO responsibility. Folks, this is not about technology. Don't hide behind, I don't understand computers, because what I'm talking about has absolutely nothing to do with computers. They just happen to be the delivery mechanism for a management system. In the old days, we called them management information systems, which was actually much more relevant and much more accurate than ERP. ERP is a bit of a buzzword, which actually, when you analyze it, doesn't mean a lot, because frankly, there's a very small part of the ERP that does resource planning. So ERP is a collection of tools, folks. If you're going to blame the ERP, you've got to look in the mirror, because bad workman blames their tools. So ERP harshly judges a CEO who abdicates responsibility. I want to talk a bit about an engineering approach to ERP. I'm an engineer by training, and over the years I came to understand that engineers do not design bridges to stand up. They design bridges not to fall down. And therefore they continuously look at things that can cause failure and design those things out of the project. So you'll find that if you engage with me, I spend a lot of time looking at the things that go wrong, and you can say, James, you really negative and obsessive, etc. Folks, I'm an engineer, and engineers do that. Engineers concern themselves with what can cause failure and prevent failure and thereby achieve success. So engineering approach, design against failure, no mythology, ERP precision configuration, leads the process, not process. Workflow process, folks, is generally regarded as a key first step in an ERP implementation. It's a complete and utter waste of time, and it sends you off in the wrong direction. It's a design output in the laboratory, not an input. If you're going to, whatever you're going to do, whether it's remediation, re-implementation, or procurement, you need to have a robust process, and the 7-step process is exactly that. It's a reality that at the start of the project, the business knows the organization well. It has to learn the ERP. The implementers understand the ERP. They need to learn the business. Collectively, both teams must fully understand and work collaboratively for the outcome. And by the end of the project, the people in the organization must know the ERP and run the ERP without the consultants. So you need to mobilize senior, mature, experienced team members on both sides. So what that looks like, folks, is that you do not accept a mid-level, relatively junior consultant from the implementers, tell them to give you their A-team, their senior, highly experienced people. And you need to match that on the client side. There needs to be high levels of accountability on both sides, and people need to understand they're going to be called to account if things go wrong. And I advocate the use of certificates at various stages in the process to manage this. And then finally, it's precision tool. Folks, everything in life that works because it's precise. Engineering is about designing and building and operating precise machines, buildings, etc. So why is it that businesses think that they can do what I call sloppy configuration, like the examples that I showed you earlier, and get away with it? You have to have precision configuration, and we'll talk about that in quite a bit of detail in a few minutes. So some vital considerations with the strategic project leader. That person guides the entire project. This is a person that you bring in for the duration of the project, and they may remain involved to a limited extent in an advisory capacity thereafter. The bulk of the people who do the work need to be staff members. The SPL is focused on the 20% that drives 80% of the strategic value, the differentiation, the profitability. And there are vital principles to apply, which I will talk about in quite a bit of detail on the 2-day course. They manage the consolidated view based on many years' experience. Folks, we're talking about, as I said earlier, a greybeard. We're talking about somebody in their 50s or 60s, to be quite honest. Step number 3, distill the strategic essence. What do I mean by strategy? Well, there are various definitions. Professor Malcolm MacDonald of Cranfield School of Management, right things from the customer's perspective. Differentiation, Professor Michael Porter of Harvard Business School. Strategic driving force, Dr. Michel Robert of Decision Processes International. My own definition, strategy is the essence of why the organization exists and how it thrives. Many years ago, I wrote the importance of aligning ERP with business strategy, thought I'd just define strategy with military metaphor, and after 3 pages discovered that I couldn't, started looking around and came across the work of Professor Malcolm MacDonald, who says that strategy is doing the right things viewed from the customer's perspective, and tactics is doing things right viewed from the customer's perspective. And if you do the right things well, your organization will thrive, and that's where my logo comes from. My whole business is focused on assisting clients to thrive. He goes on to say that if you do the right things not so well, your business will survive, and if you do the wrong things, it'll die. It's just a matter of how quickly. And the better you get at doing the wrong things, the faster it will die. And I've certainly seen a number of situations in which organizations have died fast as a consequence of badly implemented ERPs. And I cited 2 examples of that a few minutes ago. Continuing the discussion of what is strategy, Michael Porter again. Strategy is the creation of a unique and valuable position involving a different set of activities. Strategy is making trade-offs in competing and choosing what not to do. Create competitive advantage, differentiation. The essence of strategy is integration, the ability to see in a complex, holistic way. Technology is not strategy. So a key part of your ERP implementation is to understand the strategic essence of the business and say, how do I strengthen that? How do I elaborate that? How do I create competitive advantage? How do I differentiate from competitors? Because if you can do that, your ERP will really sing. And then Dr. Michel Robert, every organization has a single strategic driving force that determines what it does and how it succeeds, and he maintains that there are only the 10 on the list there. So you need to understand that. What is it that propels the organization into the future? And then, having investigated all of these and sat through workshops and lectures, etc., and read and studied, I eventually decided that strategy is the essence of why the organization exists and how it thrives. Generally, in the beginning, it was intuited. It wasn't invented. People who found organizations just have an innate ability to read the market and see what's valuable. So we find that strategy is a holistic, integrated picture of how the entire organization fits together and interoperates with the external environment to produce a thrive outcome. So let's look at why strategic alignment is critical. The essence of the business must be accurately modeled in the ERP. And you say to me, well, how do you do that? I'll share a case study of that a little bit later in this session. Lack of strategic alignment can result in the ERP getting in the way of the strategic fundamentals of the business and crippling it. And I mentioned the situation with that service promise, the chemicals importer and distributor, a few minutes ago. Constantly monitor the ERP implementation against the essence, the right things from the customer's perspective. Look for opportunities to use the ERP implementation to differentiate against competitors, strengthen the strategic driving force. Time dependency of strategy. You need to have a forecast in terms of where you're going, but that is not a strategy. You need to have a goal, an objective, where you're aiming for, and again, that is not a strategy. A strategic plan is a trajectory of continuous improvement within business constraints, and you see the red line there. So you do a whole lot at the beginning to produce value delivery at the end. So, folks, one of the things you need to watch against is there is a tendency to talk about low-hanging fruit, and there's a tendency for low-hanging fruit to be tactical effectiveness, tactical efficiency issues rather than strategic effectiveness issues. And if we look in the real world, Gillette, many years ago, from the book Good to Great, and what you find is that red line off the previous image just transposes directly onto this. So you do a whole lot at the beginning to produce dramatic benefits later on. In kicking off a project, whether it's a remediation, a re-implementation, or a new implementation, you need to do strategic analysis with the executive committee. StratSnap is a process that I've developed. If you attend the 2-day course, you'll get a copy of the spreadsheets and the process guidelines. So we look at critical concerns, critical strategic requirements, critical success factors, possibly other factors, and we do that for the enterprise as a whole, and we may also do workshops with manufacturing, operations, finance, etc. This is a worksheet out of that tool. 7 critical factors on the left, weights for each of the members of the EXCO, and what you'll see there, if you look at the third line, column 3, 7 out of 10 in terms of importance, and column 5, 25% in terms of relative importance. So folks, there are different views of the mountain, as I call it. So this is a contour map of a mountain with 2 peaks, and the metaphor is that the objective of the project is to get to the top of the mountain. And it's really true, as I've just said, that the executive, the production, operations, marketing, finance, etc., all see the business differently. They all see the mountain differently. And if you leave them to just do their own thing, they'll all try and achieve the outcome their own way. So you need to agree at the executive level one way up the mountain, and then everybody needs to stick to it. And the process that I've just spoken about, the strategic analysis process, takes the exco through a process of agreeing what that is. Then another output from the process is strategic trajectory, and what you see here is the ERP was doing sort of okay, it's still doing sort of okay, it'll still be doing sort of okay in about 3 years' time. Nothing great, want some significant improvement, and that gives you a gap. Here you see a situation where they're heading for the rocks at a cracking pace, crisis situation. And this analysis just helps you to get some idea of where your priorities lie. Out of that, for each factor, you get 7 gaps. You apply the weights to the scores, and as you see in this case, there are 2 factors which are the bulk of where you should be focusing your attention. So you're netting down to the 20% of the issues that will deliver 80% of the value. And if you don't do this process at the beginning, you're going to go and spend a lot of time on things that are really not important. So that results in a gap analysis, and for every one of the 7 gaps across the 7 factors, you come up with a list of projects and activities and policy changes, etc., in order to close the gap. So you end up with a detailed project plan, which includes the implementation of the ERP, but it addresses other things that you need to do in order to achieve a high-value business outcome. And the thing to understand, folks, is an ERP implementation or a re-implementation or even a remediation is not a technology project. It's not an IT project. It's a business improvement, maybe even a business transformation project. So you must look at it with a holistic view of everything that needs to be done to deliver on the expected value outcome. Some key points with regard to strategy, strategic discovery. What is the essence of the business? It's determined by the execs. It requires strategic facilitation so that it can be translated into action. It's a concise, simple statement that guides everything else, how the organization thrives. It's not complex. You need to ask the right questions so that you can make the right decisions, and it informs every facet of the ERP implementation. True strategic focus, right things from the customer's perspective, how to differentiate, strategic driving force, the essence of the organization and how it thrives, enhance the right things, minimize the wrong things. So economic insight is vital, clear understanding of profit, how profit is generated, and translate that into requirements for the ERP implementation. Part of what that means, folks, is the strategic project leader must have commercial and business experience. It is not, I say again, it is not a technical role. So I'm conscious of the fact that you may be a bit time pressured right now. There's a lot that I'm still going to cover, but I just want to give you an off-ramp here. The details and the commercials are at the end of this video, and then also if you go to the landing page, the link in the email that you received, the link to this masterclass in, if you click on that link, the basic commercials, etc., are on the landing page, and you can go ahead and order, register for the 2-day course. If you are a C-suite person and you really don't have time right now to spend 2 days on the course, send your direct reports. There's a special discount if you send 3 or more, and I encourage you to send 3 or more so that you can really climb into this as a business. And I would encourage you as a C-suite executive to make the time to attend. It's spread out over 2 weeks, 1 day a week, so that it's not taking a huge chunk out of your week, and so that you can make the adjustments to attend if at all possible. Step number 4 of the process is a decision whether to remediate or replace, and if it's replace, you go through a procurement process. If it's remediate, you go through a negotiation process with the implementers in terms of whatever you may need from the implementers. So in both cases, you need a strategic requirements definition. You need to assess in terms of remediate, is the current software still supported? How serious is the poor configuration? I offer my pulse measurement service. I'll come in and within a couple of days, I'll give you a robust assessment of that. Cost of replacing versus remediating. Approach all relevant players for recommended implementers. Risks of remediating versus replacing. Folks, generally speaking, it is much lower risk to remediate rather than to replace. However, you need to apply all 7 steps in my recipe rigorously, consistently, reliably, starting with CEO custody. And then formal structured negotiation. If you're going to do a remediation or a re-implementation, you're still going to need the implementers at some level because they know the back end, etc. And you need to do that in such a way that by the end of the project, there's been a transfer of knowledge that you can run the system yourselves. I want to stress that most ERP issues can be remediated. CEO custody with relevant support and the CPS strategic project leader who's frequently part-time. You need to address strategic alignment. You need to put a lot of effort into precision configuration. Folks, that's the big thing. That's what's left at the end of the project is the configuration and what's in people's heads, what they've been trained up on. In both cases, you need prove it works and make it work, and they look pretty much the same, irrespective of whether you're re-implementing, remediating, or putting in a new system. I encourage you to look carefully at remediation before deciding to scrap. Procuring a new system is a heavy project and very disruptive. Accurately value the human capital investment in your existing ERP. Do not underestimate the amount of time and therefore money that your organization has invested in making sure that your staff know how to use the ERP. Even if it's not well implemented, you're still going to save money with the re-implementation in most cases. Procurement, again, you need a strategic requirements definition. The CEO must be the sponsor. You need an experienced leader. You need a rigorous tender-based process with a robust proven document pack, tough request for proposal, and comprehensive discovery by the bidder. I offer a pack of documents, and if you attend the 2-day course, I'll present you with an offer to purchase the document pack and also for training on that. Step number 5, develop precision ERP configuration. Folks, this is the big one. It's the heart of the solution. It's what remains after the project is complete, together with the training, as I said a minute ago. You must model the real world. You need to do structured walkthroughs of the business and the software. Your master data classifications, your chart of accounts, dimensions, item class, etc. must be absolutely perfect, rigorous, precise, highly structured, logical, hierarchical. All your user-defined classifications, we'll talk about that a bit more in a minute. Generally, I recommend some clever software which gears your precision configuration. You're looking for a high-value strategic thrive outcome, and you need skilled and experienced facilitation. It's a huge part of a thrive outcome. Folks, without precision configuration, you don't actually have a lot to show for it. And it's entirely possible to retrofit this to an existing installation. So let's talk a bit more about precision ERP configuration. It must be strategically aligned. The CEO must be the sponsor. The strategic project leader must guide the precision configuration process in terms of setting strategic priorities. You need an expert with a proven track record to lead that. I can train and mentor somebody who has the right experience and mindset. I can do it for you also, for that matter. The detail can be done by in-house staff members with necessary aptitude and experience. Precision ERP configuration adds the greatest value to the ERP, and effective execution is absolutely vital. I want to put this all in context, folks, computers versus people, because there's a tendency to blur these boundaries and think not sensibly. Computers process data, they collect, collate, summarize, etc. People interpret, take decisions, and act. They're two distinct things. The computers must present the information in a way that facilitates interpretation and decision making. So our goal is to make the right decisions. The fundamental challenge is to get the right information to the right person in the right place at the right time in order to make the right decision, in order to thrive. An organization that consistently makes right decisions will prosper. Poor quality data is a major factor in bad business decisions. I want to talk about the military quick attack. Where I come from, there was compulsory military service. I arose to become a regimental commander, qualified to command a brigade of about 5,000 personnel, all arms. And one of the things that I learned through that is that quality intelligence, quality information is critical. Bad intelligence loses battles and gets own forces killed. And likewise, decisions must be taken quickly and effectively. Quality decisions are vital. Bad decisions lose battles and get own forces killed. So an absolutely central part of my thinking is how do you enable executives and managers to take good quality decisions quickly? And everything that I'm talking to you about is directed at that. So in evaluating ERP value, you want something that is fully integrated at the data level, and I'll touch on this a bit more in a few minutes. The system must be, the system operational efficiency and precision must be absolutely top-notch. You're looking at integrated holistic business operations. You really, really, really need precision ERP configuration, strategic alignment of all systems, comprehensive management information with full drill down, and then comprehensive high-value strategic thrive decision-making. And I submit for your consideration that that last point is 70% of where the value lies. The first 6 are just necessary precursors to get to the 7th point. And then something that's called decision-making fatigue, quote from Google, state of mental overload that can impede a person's ability to continue making decisions. That is made much worse if the ERP is badly implemented. It's difficult to get the information you need. It's difficult to make decisions. You have fear you're making the wrong decision because you don't really have the right information, etc. I'm going to talk about taxonomies, and my approach is based on zoology, the NATO document filing system, various library cataloging schemes, and various other bits and pieces. I've got decades of ERP precision configuration experience and thought leadership, including over 1,000 hours of unremunerated R&D, plus a significant capital investment. In terms of unlocking ERP value, we want intuitively, fundamentally meaningful information, structured such that the computer system appears intelligent, presented through reports, graphs, etc., which lay the foundation for sophisticated models that improve overall strategic executive decision support, giving much better strategic, tactical, and operational decisions. Folks, what I want you to understand here is what I am talking about is up there compared to the run-of-the-mill, which is down here. I'm talking about a strategic weapon for your business, folks, not some operational process optimization thing. That too, but that's not the reason why you do ERP. We looked at this earlier. Just to reinforce the point, on the left and on the right, the differences, set of standards that we apply everywhere. The these principles and standards need to be applied to the item class, the chart of accounts, the dimensions, the attributes, the cubic business model, etc. And that is absolutely key, folks. You can even take this as far as the item master. So looking again at that FTSE 100 chart of accounts on the left there, an example of a chart of accounts that I did for a client. On the right, you'll notice that it's hierarchical and structured codes. Very, very important. There's a whole set of disciplines and practices that go with this. The item class on the left from the FTSE 100 company on the right, something that I did for another client, both mining clients, by the way. And then attributes. One of the problems that happens is that there are characteristics of particularly the products that are not in the database. So if you look at the example on the screen there, golfing client, golfing retailer, and sitting with the CEO, he said to me, James, when the person on the leaderboard on the US circuit, in the golfing circuit, has clicky golf clubs, the sale of clicky golf clubs goes up and the sale of the other sounds go down. And if then somebody else is on the leaderboard, it adjusts accordingly. But we don't have that information, so we set up the tables that you see on the right there, and we added them to the product master so that it was possible to do that analysis. And you should do that in the ERP. Ideally, if you can't, you can do it in the data warehouse. The business intelligence challenge. Most businesses are not making better decisions despite substantial investments. Most ERP implementations do not deliver what was promised. Most extract, transform, load into the data warehouse is unscrambling the spaghetti. And if you think back to those two really poor examples that I showed you, it's almost impossible to make sense of that data. You've got to go right the way back to the basics, set up your precision configuration, and then cross-map it. And then you've got some hope of sorting it out. But if you've got things like whatever it was, plant spares, which is a huge bin, you then pulling thousands of transactions into Excel and trying to make sense of it. You've got to go back and you've got to break that down and do the necessary. So hierarchies expedite interpretation. The only way a computer knows about organizational structure, market segmentation, etc., is through the logic in the code schemes. Cognitive span, Miller's law. It's a number of discrete items of information that a human being can almost instantaneously engage with and snap. This is typically reported to be 7 plus or minus 2, in other words, between 5 and 9. It determines the optimum number of slices in a pie chart, the categories in the classification, the direct reports, etc. And what you'll see there is on the left, 3 slices doesn't tell you much. In the middle, 20 slices, very cluttered, very difficult to make sense of it. And on the right, 7 slices, very easy to interpret. And this, by the way, is an established fact. It's called Miller's Law. You'll see there in Wikipedia. Miller of Harvard University's Department of Psychology, published in 1956 in Psychological Review. It is often interpreted to argue that the number of objects an average human can hold in short-term memory is 7 plus or minus 2. This has been referred to as Miller's Law. I've verified this empirically over many years. It really does work. And it relates even to governance. Having somebody manage more than 9 people is a stretch, and unless they've got a very, very wide cognitive span, it's a problem. Taking that through to what I call the psychology of drill down, 7 plus or minus 2 slices in your pie chart, quickly see what you want to look at, drill down, draw a conclusion, if necessary, take a decision, and act. So everything in your hierarchy should be around about 7 items. So going back to the case studies, the auditors just left after 6 weeks. Last year they were here for 6 months. They signed off the balance sheet without qualifications. For the first time in 15 years, we have masses of management information. Profitability is improved, and we did it with one less bookkeeper. That was done first and foremost with the cubic business model in both the project system and in the financial system. And there you see the representation of the cube. Every piece of data, every asset, every person, every project has a location within the business where it is at home and has a function. So the location is where we do what we do, function is what we do. And each of those has an intersect, like the little blue square in the middle there, and everything ties into that. It's not as simple as it looks, folk. This is where I first quoted 90 hours and spent 1,000, but I know the tricks of the trade and I can help you with that. It's a very, very powerful model. And here you see an example: divisions, medium-sized company, billion turnover corporation, 12 operating divisions, milling, baking, deep-sea fishing, etc. Group locations for another company, reflecting the actual physical disposition of assets. Looking at the functions. This is an interesting one. This is for that big company again. They own the biggest flour mill in southern Africa, in the southern hemisphere, in fact. They own a very big bakery chain. They own a big pie company, a few other consumers of bread flour. And so the price that they paid for wheat at the mill had a serious impact on the profitability and competitiveness of the majority of the companies in the group. So we put that front and center right at the top of the list of functions so that it got primary attention. And those are small things which add up to big things in terms of strategic alignment. Coming down to the chart of accounts, an example there, another few examples there for different companies. And the point I want to make here, folks, there is a buzz around the world that talks about industry standard charts of accounts. Folks, I could use quite strong language to respond to that. Every enterprise is different. It has different strategic drivers. It has a different approach to governance and management and so on and so forth. If you look at motor car manufacturers, Volkswagen, their driving force is people's cars. Volvo's driving force is safety. Honda's driving force is engine technology. Their emphasis is different, their focus is different, and their chart of accounts will be different. And just by the way, the reason that the Daimler-Chrysler merger was such a disaster was because they were incompatible at the level that I just talked about. And that's why strategic essence and understanding that the strategy and the alignment of the strategy is absolutely vital, because you cannot click your fingers and change the strategic essence of an enterprise. So coming back to the cube on the function dimension, the strategic logic, that needs to be worked out in close consultation with the CEO and the CFO, and it gives you a logical flow for everything and how it all fits together. And there's a bit of a science involved in that. This is an example of the face of the cube, a real knife example, and each of the cells with numbers in them has a little mini chart of accounts that is only the posting is only authorized by the responsible manager. There are no journals into that. And so you've got complete accountability, and you've got the financials broken down in a way that is effectively self-auditing. Then you've got some special cases, and this is where I said there are some complexities that we'll talk about in a bit more detail on the 2-day course. So it's a very powerful management and governance model. What that also allows you to do in the top half of that report, your headlines of your expense schedule for that particular cell. The bottom half is the overheads from all the other cells that are rolled up onto that to give you a net contribution. But the person who's managing that business unit is only concerned with the top half of that graph. So what is the cubic business model really? It's a portfolio of logic, highly structured code, and practical components that you see on the screen, their divisions, locations, functions, and then data elements such as costs, revenue, liabilities, plant, people, projects, and so forth. It's about standards and conventions. It's an outworking of intense research and development. It's unique to myself. As I said, I spent a lot of time on it. And I have proprietary software which builds the chart of accounts, and this is what it looks like. So as you seek to have those little mini charts of accounts for each cell on the matrix, it gets a little bit mind-bending doing that in Excel or another tool. So I had a piece of software written for me. Well, I designed it. It was built for me, and that manages that whole process. And it includes functionality to allow you to map the old codes onto the new code so that you have complete flow through of your old data onto your new data, and you can use the new reports to analyze the history. You can also do that to map acquisitions or possible acquisitions during due diligence and apply your reports and standards to that, which is a very efficient way of assessing your due diligence. Some years ago, I sat down and compiled all of this into what I call my taxonomy handbook. And again, if you do the 2-day course, you'll get a copy of that. So step number 6, prove it works, the laboratory. This is absolutely vital to ensuring a robust installation. You must test with fully representative data, all the idiosyncrasies, the unusual situations, etc. You need to aim to break the configuration until you cannot break it anymore. You're designing not to fail. You're doing war games. You fine-tune the configuration. You prescribe workflows, processes. Process design is an output, not an input. You develop and test reports. You develop and test your data warehouse, extract, transform, load, and your business intelligence. With precision ERP configuration, this flows easily. You do all your necessary documentation, your standards, your policies, your how-to documents. You develop training material and train staff and train every user. Your master data must be fully cleansed before you go live, and that can be very time consuming. And there's some tricks to that as well. Accuracy and quality of master data has a considerable impact on the new implementation. You do not want to go live with scrappy master data from your legacy situation. When new user-defined values are added, these should either be added in parallel, carefully joined spreadsheets or database tables, or ideally in the old system. The ideal is zero data preparation on the day before go live. Just export and import immediately. So coming back to the laboratory war games, this is user acceptance testing on steroids, if you like. You are modeling the working environment to prototype and refine the configuration. You need a high level of strategic executive engagement. Folks, I can't stress this enough. You're looking at what should be a 20-year plus investment. In fact, if you do this right, you should never have to replace your ERP. A key deliverable out of the laboratory is the Go Live certificate, which is signed by all senior parties, declaration that everything's tested and ready, and there need to be penalties for premature signature. One of the things that goes wrong with Go Live is people sit around the table and say, yes, I think it's okay, I think it's okay, I think it's okay, and then it goes wrong. And nobody says, well, hang on, but Joe, you said you thought it was okay. So what we do is we have a certificate which says, I, the undersigned, John Smith, the whatever, let's say the chief financial officer, have satisfied myself in the laboratory that the system is working 100% to requirements, and I therefore authorize Go Live. And you do that for every single role player. And when everybody's signed it, then the strategic project leader signs it, and once the strategic project leader has signed it, the chief executive signs it. Only then do you go live. And I guarantee you that if you have signed a document like that, the go live will be a doddle, because nobody's going to put their signature on that document until they have done due diligence on what's been done. Again, aware of time constraints, so if you're running out of time, The commercials are at the end of the video, or alternatively summarized on the landing page. The link is on the email that you use to get to this presentation. Step 7, make it work, go live. What you're aiming for is that the reaction of the staff on day one is, this is exactly what we were trained on, I know what to do. All master data fully cleaned, prepared in the old system so the priming of the system goes smoothly and without hitches. Everyone's prepared, there are no surprises. You're going to spend the first year learning how to get full value from the investment, that red exponential curve that we looked at earlier. You've put in a whole lot of work with the implementation, stroke re-implementation, stroke remediation. It's going to take some time before you get real benefits. Do not lose heart. Keep going at it. You're getting hands-on experience practically, because in the laboratory you're working with maybe 5% of the data. Suddenly you're working with 100% of the data. The client organization owns and operates the system. You should be able to let the consultants go soon after go live. If you have consultants who've been there for years, it's a reflection of the fact that you've got a really weak configuration that nobody really understands, and you're paying somebody for year in and year out to look after the mess. So let's look at a Thrive outcome. And the simplest definition of a Thrive outcome is profitable operation. You want to raise the standard of business operations, effectiveness and efficiency. The cubic business model should be fully operational with tight governance. The GL then becomes effectively self-auditing. You need tight operational, financial, and other controls. Do things you could not previously possible in terms of differentiation, things your competitors can't do. It gives you a platform for growth and acquisition, masses of management information, answers to the questions you've not previously thought to ask, or a few mouse clicks away. You become self-sufficient. There's no need for ongoing expensive consultants. Case study 2, African sales company ASCO, facilitated growth, new distribution center, and necessity, and so forth. And I'm going to share with you now what that looks like. So the story behind the ASCO success. I had just completed my lecture to the Gibbs Executive MBA class, and a delegate approached me. Dr. Robertson, my name is Robert. I'm sitting with a failed ERP implementation. Can you help me? By all means. Scoping the investigation, we made an arrangement to meet a few days later. We met, and Robert outlined the situation in his business. He was CEO of the 90-year-old family business with half ownership along with his brother. They'd purchased a mid-level ERP and gone through an implementation. The implementation had failed. Could I assist? I proposed my standard short-duration executive pulse measurement investigation and submitted a proposal. This was accepted, and I commenced work a few days later. The pulse measurement. I interviewed the leadership of the business, starting with Robert with my standard questions. I undertook a detailed walkthrough of the business led by Robert. Folks, that is so important. If you are leading an ERP project, you must physically walk through the business and understand how it operates. Otherwise, how do you facilitate? How do you guide? It's absolutely vital, folks. I discovered that the strategic essence of the business was brand management. The more effective the brand management, the greater the sales and the greater the profits. I then interviewed Sean, the CEO of the implementer, and his team, and undertook a walkthrough of the software. The findings. Robert had left the project with the IT manager, a chap in his mid-20s. First mistake. Sean had left the project with one of his mid-level project managers. Second mistake. The strategic essence of brand management had been totally overlooked, and the configuration was sloppy and substandard relative to my standards. That credit note reason codes that I showed you a few minutes ago came from there. The project had started with detailed process mapping. A total waste of time. The recommendations. The executive sponsor must be Robert. The implementer team must be led by Sean. Configuration needed to be done from scratch. Brand management had to be front and central to the project. Step 1, agreement to executive custody, CEO custody. Robert accepted my findings and asked me if I would take charge of the project. I agreed, subject to Robert taking personal charge of the project from the business side, and my having an open door to Robert, and Robert participating in all key workshops and guiding the project from the business perspective. Also subject to Sean leading the implementer team and at least attending weekly project meetings and key workshops. This was agreed. Step 2, ERP strategic project leader. It was further agreed that we'd do things my way. No in-house project manager, all schedule and related project management by the implementer. Precision configuration was fundamental. Step 3, strategic alignment. It was agreed that the strategy of the business, the essence of the business and how it thrived was brand management. Accordingly, for the balance of the project, I devoted particular attention to brand management. Step 4, remediate versus replace. I'd found that the ERP was entirely suitable, so no reason to replace. Since the system had not gone live and the configuration was sloppy, it was agreed that we would effectively do a completely new implementation, retaining what we could, which turned out to be very little. Step 5, precision configuration. We then moved to precision configuration, and this was a major focus for the next few months of the project. This was constrained by Robert's availability and the time to take to develop bespoke software, a point of challenge. As soon as I commenced work on the implementation, Sean came to me. "James, you'll need these," he said, and presented me with a thick file of process diagrams. I thanked him for them, glanced at them, and put them on the shelf where they remained for the rest of the project. My focus was on strategic configuration, not workflow. Folks, there's a fundamental principle here. The same people are required to do process mapping as are required to do the details of the precision configuration. They don't have time to do both. So you either start your project with precision configuration or you start your project with process mapping. And as I've hinted several times so far, process mapping is a complete waste of time. It does not inform the fundamental configuration of the ERP at a strategic level. You define the processes as a design output in the laboratory, not as a design input to the implementation. So workflow would be resolved in the laboratory in stage 6. Sean frowned, clearly not comfortable with my reaction. After the successful outcome of the project, he adopted my approach. And I had occasion a few years ago to need a couple of testimonials, so I asked Sean for a testimonial, and he gave me this quite lengthy document. My first reaction to Dr. Robertson's approach was confusion and resistance, and I've touched on that. The end result was he took it on board and says, quote, "far greater percentage of successful projects and customers who got what they expected." Folks, this is powerful stuff. We're not talking about little second order fiddling around the edges. We're talking about fundamental strategic benefits. So initiating precision ERP configuration. Instead, I asked for an in-depth walkthrough of the software now that I had a better idea of the requirements, which was arranged forthwith. I also requested an Excel workbook with all of the validation table specifications, together with all data currently in the tables. I had to ask for this 3 times because it did not conform to standard ERP practice. We had the process diagrams after all. "Sean, I really do need that workbook urgently, please." Finally, after getting quite pushy, I received the spreadsheet. I immediately started sitting with Robert and the appropriate line manager for each table, and together we developed precision hierarchies for each table. We started with the credit note reason codes, which you've seen. So there you see them again, just to recap. Almost no choices, very incomplete, cannot answer just about any question you might ask about credit notes. High value replacement, very highly structured. We've gone through this a couple of times, but it just bears repeating. Notice the capital letters for the headings, which correspond to the codes with the dot in the second position so that you can filter, roll it up. Very, very effective, very, very powerful. Missing attribute data, well, we found that there was a whole lot of attributes that weren't on the product master, so we developed a significant number of user-defined tables. Product class, we developed a very structured brand hierarchy which reflected all the products in the business. Product category, the finer detail of the individual brand lines, cosmetics, fragrances, etc. This is a user-defined table. That allowed me to specify bespoke software to maintain the item master and the brand hierarchy codes. You'll see there custom forms and a whole lot of individual user-defined tables on the product master. It also allowed me to specify a piece of bespoke software that synchronized between the product master and the projects master. They were not integrated in the ERP. They were completely unrelated. I said to Sean, I want to coordinate the two. He said, it can't be done. There was another guy working on site who was working on the warehouse, and he had experience with the same ERP. And I said to him, Anton, can you do it? And he said, sure, no problem. So we did it. We also created a master list of 29 expense headings, which generated corresponding bins in the projects module. All of this integrated with the general ledger. So this gave us precise brand management. So the outcome was brand management, precision product master data plus precision brand classification, projects module integrated at the data level, not the technical level, using third-party software and precision configuration. Powerful brand management capability, budget per month per brand line across 29 expense heads for every 12-month budget cycle. Folks, something I want you to take note of here. In order to fully support the strategic driver of the business, the brand management, I specified some small pieces of bespoke software. It is quite possible that you will need to do that with your strategic driving force. And if you don't do that, you will miss out on, as you will see in a moment, a big opportunity. So step number 6, prove it works, the laboratory war games. We kitted out one of the training rooms with computers. The entire core team, including consultants, sat together, facilitated by myself, with Robert in the room where needed and Sean where appropriate. We thrashed the system until we could no longer break it. We established the operational processes. We trained all users. Step 7, make it work, go live. Once every facet of the system was tested, we set the date to go live, and go live went flawlessly. 1 year on, the standard of brand management had dramatically improved. Sales and profits were up. Dior came to Robert and said, we've heard what you can do. Our present distributor cannot do that, so we want to give the distribution to you. Within a few months, the transition had occurred, and revenue was up by 12%, close to overnight. I subsequently wrote 2 case studies with Robert that were presented at conferences. So the first one, Smexa, a strategic ERP investment African sales company case study. And then the BPM Summit, doing things differently and better, ASCO case study, creating competitive advantage. And folks, in my experience as a consultant, there is no greater commendation, accolade that a client can give you than to put their name on a joint paper and at a public conference. And to do it twice, I think, is quite an achievement. So statement of benefits, just to recap. Facilitated growth, new distribution center necessity. There's the new center on the bottom left. Now the thing to note there, folks, is this is not just second order stuff. The business grew more dynamically because the brand management was better, so the sales went up, the profits went up. This is serious strategic advantage gained through this implementation. Then to sum up, the 7-step process delivers results. The CEO custody is absolutely critical. Robert was superb. Implemented director custody is critical. Sean really pulled his weight on that. Strategic project leader is vital. Strategic alignment is vital. Precision ERP configuration to ERP doctor standards is at the heart of this success. Laboratory and war games must be rigorously conducted. Design ERP implementations not to fail. And in the 2-day course, we'll go into all of this in a lot more detail. So there we have the 7 steps, and as I say, the 2-day course will go into that in considerably more detail. The bottom line is world-class strategic effectiveness leading to improved profitability and growth, a Thrive outcome. And you've seen very graphically illustrated by the ASCO case study what that looks like. I can help you do that for your organization, my friends. A few clients, you won't recognize most of them in South Africa. I've been in the UK long enough now to know that the situation in the running of businesses and ERP in businesses in South Africa and in the UK is pretty much the same. So again, a bit of a time check. If you're running out of time, you might like to just skip to the end of the video for the commercials or go to the landing page. The link is underneath the link that you used to get to this video in the email that was sent to you. So an overview of the 2-day course. Please join me for my 2-day course where I'll present the 7-step recipe in more detail and discuss practical application of the recipe. I'll provide a range of standard document templates and a practical exercise in the strategic analysis method with root tools and process guidelines. We'll discuss precision ERP configuration in detail, and I'll share tricks and traps. The course will go through each step in sequence, and delegates will receive checklists, charters, and mandate documents and other resources for each step. The approach is applicable to an incremental remediation of the ERP, a full-blown re-implementation, and also a completely new implementation. The 2-day course will equip your team to apply the 7-step process in your organization. Delegates will be able to ask questions throughout the course. Delegates are invited to bring samples of the ERP data for me to critique. The course will be presented on Zoom and recorded. The videos will be available. Overview, the pulse measurement. Overview of my strategic executive level pulse measurement to undertake a concise, high-value assessment of the health of your ERP, leading to a prioritized list of headline actions to remediate the installation. It's a good way to start your ERP remediation, and you'll see in a few slides a special offer for my professional services. And quite frankly, if you know that you need to do something with your ERP, just reply to the email that's brought you this link, and let's set up a Zoom call, and I can start work on this at your convenience. Step 1, lock in CEO custody. We'll look at all the information necessary to initiate and support the CEO as custodian, together with the role of all members of the C-suite and the role of the implemented director. We'll look at this strategic ERP project leader. I'll give you all the necessary information to recruit, initiate, mandate, and support the SPL. Essence of the business. I'll give you a step-by-step process for determining the strategic essence. I'll share with you a presentation of standard scene setting presentation for EXCO strategic workshop. I'll take you through a practical exercise and instruction on the StratSnap and StratGap tools and method using critical concerns with regard to our ERP, and delegates will receive the StratSnap and StratGap Excel spreadsheets and the process guidelines PowerPoint and introductory PowerPoint, £1,000 value. Step 4, remediate or replace. I'll give you a checklist, critical considerations with regard to deciding whether to remediate or replace. Discuss how the decision is informed by the critical concerns with regard to our ERP, and a walkthrough of the procurement process. Develop precision configuration, checklist, detailed discussion. I'll take you through the whole process there, including the cubic business model. Laboratory, checklist and charters, go live certificate. Make it work, checklist for go live, responsibilities, overview of measures to take during the first year. So the overview of Thrive Outcome, I'll discuss the nature of the Thrive Outcome and how the system is managed in order to deliver on it. I'll talk about clear ownership of the ERP, data warehouse, and business intelligence at all levels. ERP and BI are the only source of management information and must be treated accordingly. And we'll talk about the ERP as a precision machine used accordingly. Thrive specifics, these are in the email that you received with the link to this presentation. The business is more profitable, growing strongly. I'm not going to go all of those in detail. You have got them. 2-day course commercials. Course fee is £1,580 plus VAT per delegate. There's a 25% discount for registration and payment not later than the 30th of May 2025. Brings it down to 1185. There's a further 25% discount for 3 or more delegates from the same organization. And I encourage you to take me up on this. Send a team. It brings it down to 888.75 with the early bird. And I really encourage you, if you're really sitting with issues with your ERP and looking for measures you can take immediately, send a group of people who are responsible for the detailed work on the course, and you'll get real value out of it. Dates: full day Wednesday the 18th of June and Wednesday the 25th of June from 9 to 5. It's on Zoom. It will be recorded and you'll get a copy of the recording. Attendance is limited to 15 delegates, so early booking is vital. Special offer: I'm available to assist with every step in the process at both the initiation level and providing high-level advisory support throughout the project. My regular day rate is $12.50 plus travel and subsistence excluding that. If you sign up in time for the early bird rate, you can obtain my services for $9.90 per day for 12 months from the date of the 2-day course, for whatever level of engagement we agree on. Some further testimonials: Andre Chong, Manning Impex in Camberley near Farnborough, Jeff Craig, Worley Parsons International Construction Company, Professor Malcolm MacDonald on strategy, Lawrence Borick, CEO of Vantage Point Software in the United States, did the forward for my book. Kirsten Spear, Group Accountant, Rennie's Group, a group of over 100 companies in South Africa. And there are more testimonials on the website at theerpdoctor.com. So to wrap up, it's been said that if you do not act on a new idea within 48 hours, you probably never will. So sign up now for my 2-day training, the 7-step ERP Success Recipe 2-day course. To register, click on the link in the email that sent you the link to this video and fill in the necessary details. The investment, again, 1580 standard rate. Special offer 1185 if you order and pay by the Friday the 30th of May. There's a further 25% if you send 3 or more delegates, 888.75. There are only 15 places. It'll be on Zoom Wednesday 18th in June. Folks, if you really can't make those dates, let me know and we can see if we can put on a second show a little bit later. I guarantee that this course will give you a clear plan of action to resolve your ERP issues. On completion of the course, you will understand all 7 steps. You will understand precision configuration. You'll have a clear view on replace versus remediate. You'll be able to remediate your existing ERP and immediately start to fix issues. Again, the investment. Folks, if you haven't yet clicked through on that link, I encourage you to do so right away. As I say, there are only 15 places. And the sooner you place your order, the sooner you get yourself locked into one of those 15 places, or 3 or 4 or 5 of those 15 places. On completion, you will be able to accurately evaluate the health of your ERP. You'll be able to prescribe measures to raise performance. You will be able to assess the business case. You'll be able to advise your board and your exco. And you'll have pointers for things that you can do immediately. You should have picked up by now, folks, that things like attribute, tables, etc., things that you can pretty much take away from this masterclass and act on. So, folks, I really believe that what I'm offering you is exceptionally high value, and I'm very confident that you will come away from the 2-day course with a very solid understanding of what you can do to deliver a high-value ERP outcome. So I encourage you to click on that link and sign up right away. And I look forward to meeting you. Thank you so much.